welcome one and all to our August Council meeting. I'll hand over the General Manager to the live streaming of the meeting process. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The meeting is being live streamed and or recorded for on-demand viewing via Council's website. Attendance at the meeting is to be taken as consent by a person of their image and or voice being webcast. All speakers should refrain from making any defamatory comments or releasing personal information about another individual without their consent. Council accepts no liability for any damage that may result from defamatory comments made by persons attending meetings. All liability will rest with the individual who made the comments. The meeting must not be recorded by others without prior written consent of the Council in accordance with Council's Code of Meeting Practice. Councillors and staff are obliged to declare conflicts of interest as required under the Local Government Act 1993 and Council's adopted Code of Conduct. Councillors are reminded of their oath of office whereby they have declared and affirmed that they will undertake the duties of the office of a councillor in the best interest of the people of Wentworth Shire and the Wentworth Shire Council, and that they will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in them under the Local Government Act or other act to the best of their ability and judgment.
Thank you, Mr Ross. I'll now ask you to be upstanding, if you can, for the acknowledgement of country and the prayer. I would like to pay my respect and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting and pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. We give thanks and ask for guidance and direction that each of us may fulfil our responsibility to our community and to our country. Amen. Thank you. Be seated. Okay, do we have any apologies or leave of absence? Councillor Nichols is an apology. Unfortunately, she's hasn't been that well and been hospitalised for a little while, but on the mend. So we wish her all the best. Thank you. Councillor McAllister, any leave of absence? Seconder. Councillor Cooper, all in favour? Carried. Disclosures of interests. Councillor Beaumont.
Yes, I declare a potential conflict of interest in agenda item 9.9, being on the board of Wentworth District Community Medical Centre and on the committee of Wentworth District Racing Club. Thank
you. Councillor Rodder.
I declare an interest in a non-pecuniary interest in item 9.10. I have I have knowledge of the development proposal prior to it coming to council.
Thank you. Any others?
Yes, Mr Mayor. Item 9.14, non-pecuniary insignificant interest, relates to a modification determined by delegated authority for a family member.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr Mayor, over pecuniary interest was 9.10. My son is a contractor with the said business.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Cooper, seconder. Councillor Linklater, all in favour? Carried. Okay, confirmation of the minutes from last meeting. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Rodder, seconder Councillor Hayward. Any discussion?
Question, if I may.
Certainly.
Item 9.3, the Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference. Did Council make any submissions?
Nil.
And similarly, 9.4, the MDA Conference. Any submissions from Wentworth or Region 4?
Region 4, certainly. And this council has a joint submission with Broken Hill and Central Darling over all things Darling River, as you can imagine.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favour? Carried. Going to go into the public forum. Right, Councillor Linklater, would you like to take us into the public forum sector, please?
Yes, can I just have a page number, please?
After the confirmation of the minutes.
Right, that's right. I move that the ordinary council meeting be adjourned and the recording of the meeting paused for the purpose of conducting a public forum.
Thank you. Second that. Councillor Crisp, all in favour? Well, thank you. We have three speakers this evening. The first being Mrs. Glenys Beaumont in relation to item 9.9. So thanks, Glenys, and welcome.
Maybe over that quadrant, so you're sort of...
Got them all. Yeah, big voice, auctioneer's voice.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors and Mr Ross. I'm the president of the local community medical centre charity, the Wentworth District Community Medical Centre. And while I've had the opportunity to brief previous mayors and deputy mayors, I think this is probably, along with the general manager, I think this is probably the first time I've addressed all councillors. Over 3 years ago in Wentworth, we had two GP clinics, Lyme Medical and TriStar Clinics. Within a week of each other and without prior warning, they both closed their local clinics. Neither closed because of inadequate patient numbers nor lack of clinical need. New South Wales Health regularly publishes LGA level health statistics compared to the rest of the state. In these, the Wentworth LGA is shown to have worse health than the rest of New South Wales across most health measures: cardiac, stroke, respiratory, kidney disease, diabetes, self-harm, preventable hospitalisations and preventable deaths in the under 75s. In addition to that, the New South Wales Cancer Institute shows the occurrence of prostate, lung, breast, rectal and colon cancers in Wentworth as much higher than the rest of New South Wales. That's all publicly available information. So neither medical clinic closed because of inadequate patient numbers nor due to lack of clinical need. These statistics are shown over a 20-year period and they reflect the interrupted or absent medical services that Wentworth has experienced for many decades. So if I go back to 2019 when the two clinics closed, the local pharmacist Ahmed El-Feki, or Alex as he likes to be called, heard firsthand the community's alarm, especially those with complex, acute and chronic diseases. Local public and private transport issues, the closed books of Sunraysia GPs, clinics were part of the fear and dread that came across in the conversations. At this time, Ahmed met with Mayor Hedricks and Mr Ross to alert council to the circumstances and to the direct and indirect flow on to other businesses, our pharmacy, our supermarket, retail stores, etc. So it's an absolute credit that General Manager and Council undertook to assist in this matter. A negotiated arrangement was struck between Council and Dr Rod Azid at the time. It showed good promise, but was only partially successful for around 8 months when once again Wentworth was without GPs. Again, Council undertook to find a provider and with the combined support of the Wentworth and District Community Bank was able to engage the Kumiella Health Aboriginal Corporation, CHAC, in an arrangement to provide medical cover in Wentworth. In the weeks that followed the clinic closures in 2019, there was a very substantial community concern leading to a community committee being formed, and it established was the Wentworth District Community Medical Centre that I've mentioned, working on a medium to longer term infrastructure project to support full-time GP practice for Wentworth and District. Wentworth District Community Medical Centre's approach is based on research by the New South Wales Rural Doctors Network and the 15-year-long success of a community group in Barham who focused on developing community-owned clinic infrastructure as a mean to attract and retain GPs. The Rural Doctors Network research identified that one of the greatest costs to a GP practice is the price of their infrastructure. For example, buying a rural practice can be anywhere between $500,000 and $700,000, while rental of rural clinics can be anywhere between $35,000 and $40,000 per annum. Either arrangement creates a financial burden to the GPs who've been without Medicare increases to core MBS item numbers for more than 12 years. What Barham has achieved is a community-owned clinic rented to the GPs for a nominal amount, and it's seen the practice financially sustainable and viable without the need for ongoing financial assistance from council or others. Our community group is locally based, it's a charity, it has strong community membership. Our progress to date from local fundraising includes the purchase of a building in a central business location, the development of internal plans, and we are currently working with builders on fit-out quotes. As part of today's financial assistance request, WDCMC has requested financial support toward our DA costs and a 25% reduction in council rates. So while we're operating on the longer term plan, we're keen to keep steadily progressing our vision for a community-owned medical centre, and we are raising funds as we're able. So while thanking Council for their prompt and ongoing support to see Wentworth with improved health services, I would also like to express our thanks to Council for recommending our facility to RZ Resources as a potential space for RZ to lease. And as we wait for builders to be available, the financial benefit of leasing the space to RZ in the short term, should they take up the offer, will assist us to fit out a medical centre much sooner. Indeed, with the Council and GM's support, the encouragement of RZ and their proposed mining activity, there are many benefits to our town, well beyond those that are immediately obvious. So I hope that with this short presentation, it's helpful in providing an overview of the vision and progress of WDCMC, and that as part of today's financial assistance request that we are considered favourably for financial support towards our DA costs and a rate reduction in line with the charity category of WSC's financial assistance policy. So once again, our thanks to councillors and General Manager for the ongoing focus on local health services.
Thank you very much, Glenys. Okay, next two speakers are in relation to item 9.10. And the first of those is Doug Alvey. Thanks, Doug. If you would wander up.
I'm new to this, so I hope I can get through it. I'm here to speak about development 2022/61. Before I go on, I'd like to thank Council for allowing me to give my concerns in regards to this development. I just want to give, first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name's Doug Alvey. I live at 486 River Road with my wife Susan, and we've lived there for 40 years. I'd just like to give a brief history in regards to the previous developments, DAs. In 2017, a DA was to build a farm machinery shed. When 2018 came along, I became aware of a grape crushing facility and a large area of dumped grape mark on Crown land adjoining Jindalee Road. I was impacted by the offensive smell and smoke emissions and therefore contacted the Wentworth Shire, who had also become aware of the situation, and were endeavouring to address the issue with the proponents. 2019, a new DA was submitted, changed the existing farm shed approval to a grape crushing facility with 100 tonne a day, 7,000 tonne seasonal. The amended DA was approved in September 2019. To my knowledge, the proponents operated the crushing facility in the seasons 2000 and 2019 without the required permit to do so. Moving on to seasons 2020 and 21 and 22. From my observations, I believe the transport haulage of wine bins and wine tankers to and from this facility has escalated. I believe tonnes crushed have been well in excess of the approved 7,000 tonne allowed in the DA. Current DA, my concerns relate to 1, condition 6 on page 248 of the assessment report about the extraction record. My question is, how can the Wentworth Shire Council be assured that the figures provided by the beneficiary be relied on? 2, management of grape mark odour. On page 146 of the environmental management document, solid waste generation states the mark is composted in surrounding vineyards for spreading at a later date. Where in the vineyard will the mark be stored for composting, as this is a likely source of irritation to neighbouring properties? Conflicting or unclear reports of odour management and treatment. Page 146 states treatment that is treated in the surrounding vineyard. Page 149 states that it is moved as soon as possible away from the juicing facility to temporary storage area adjoining lot 1, I think it is, which is, I assume, is down on the river flat, which is 1,600 metres away approximately. There needs to be some clarification and more detail, as I believe the storage of grape mark will be a huge issue with the suggested amounts being crushed. The volume of mark to be managed, according to industry info, suggests approximately 800 litres of juice per tonne and approximately 200 kilos of solid waste, which is the mark. The 30,000 that's going to be crushed times 200 kilos of mark equates to 6,000 tonnes of solid waste. That is my estimate. This is a huge quantity of grape mark, and I believe will be a concerning issue, re the odour that it emanates from the grape mark. That will also impact the issue of re-transporting of this mark, because it goes from various sites and it is a huge issue with the movement of transport. I believe the Wentworth Shire Council needs to ensure that the conditions applied to this application are sufficient to protect both the council and the local residents. In order to do this, the 2 questions I've posed need to be addressed as in the conditions. That's about all I have on the matter, but I'm available to answer any questions if anyone has any questions. But thank you, Council.
Okay, thanks, Doug. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Linklater?
Just one quick one. Thanks, Doug. I just was looking for the exact wording, which I didn't mark, but I've read it. The consultant report refers to the odour being quite minimal or can be mitigated, and are you suggesting that that's not been experienced?
Well, the first year, the practices have changed since 2018, and it was quite, it was distressing, it was terrible. But it has improved. They have got different methods, but it doesn't always mean that with the crush that's going to happen, we're talking 30,000 tonne. We had quite a bit of odour last year. I didn't complain about it. But if it's going from 7,000 tonne to 30,000 tonne, that is, 40% or something? 40% more grape mark laying within the vineyard, which it is a problem.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Any others, councillors? Okay, thanks, Doug.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to my views. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next speaker is, on the same matter, is James Goldsworthy from behalf of the applicants.
Thanks, I've just got the hand this around, just some paperwork. Just a little bit of a summary of what I'm going to speak to. Ken? So, as councillors are aware, about almost 2 years to the day, we were standing here presenting in relation to the original proposal for this juicing plant at Kimberley Road. So what I suppose is before council in relation to this proposal is for an increase in the production, as has been explained within the report. So what we are looking to do is increase production to 4,200 tonnes per week and no more than 30,000 tonnes a year, and that will be within the period, obviously, where harvest is undertaken through the wine grape harvest period, which is, you know, sort of end of January, early February onwards for that 10-week period. So I suppose in terms of the operation of the facility, the use of the buildings and works that are taking place on the land, it will be for that period of time only, because the nature of the proposal is such that it must, or the grapes are crushed, the juice is chilled and prepared for taking or removal from the site. And generally speaking, or almost always, the juice is removed within 24 hours of the grapes being crushed. So as you can see, it's not like a winery type facility whereby the production and fermentation of wine would be taking place over time throughout the entire year. So in relation to the nature of the proposal and the actual application that we've lodged, we've prepared a number of specialist reports, both internally within our business, but then also externally. The external reports that we've prepared are land capability in terms of the wastewater that will be produced and reused on site, and then also a traffic impact assessment, which has considered the movement of vehicles to and from the site. And the condition, or a condition, of the previous proposal was for an upgrading of the intersection of River Road and Jindalee Road. So that's been undertaken at the cost of the landowner, as well as the upgrading of Jindalee Road itself. So there's been improvements undertaken there in order to cater for the traffic that would be using the site. In addition to that, there was an environmental management plan which has been referenced and included in the council papers, and really what that caters for, I suppose, is the amenity impacts that can result as through the operation of the proposal, and that seeks to really manage and ameliorate those impacts through the operation of the proposal. And it's been recommended that by the council officer who supported the application is that those documents are effectively become part of the approval. So that's something that we will need to comply with. In terms of the grounds of objection that you've heard from within the officer's report and this evening, there's a number of grounds that have been raised, but they really primarily relate to traffic, the vehicle access routes, and the crushing volume. And I suppose what we've also heard is in relation to those amenity impacts as well from the grape mark and the like. So I suppose what we firstly need to understand is the fact that we're in a rural area here within this site, and it's pretty normal and in fact encouraged throughout the LEP that agricultural production takes place, and that includes processing and value adding of the agricultural production. So we can't expect an amenity, I suppose, that would be like we're living in town in a residential area where there's no such activities, and that's what I suppose the principles of planning are, that generally speaking, houses and residential activities take place within such areas. So having said that, we've got matters in place in terms of the management plan for managing those activities, and certainly, as has been identified, there's been learnings taking place as a result of the management of Mark and the operations of the facility more generally. So in terms of traffic safety and traffic volume, we're in that period of time. The grapes are getting grown within the area that we're looking at. The grapes must be taken from the vineyards and moved. So they're going to be on the road and going somewhere else, whether it be to a winery or this juicing plant. So there is that activity on the road network more generally. And it must also be understood that part of River Road and certainly Jindalee Road is a road train route, so there's sort of no limitation in terms of the type of vehicle that can be moved along those roads. And in fact, there's opportunity, I suppose, for extensions of the road train route, which might very well increase in a reduction in the overall volume of traffic throughout the site or throughout Jindalee Road and between Baronga and Dareton. In terms of the crushing volume, it must be understood, I suppose, that 100% of the volume that we're seeking to have approved here won't be crushed every day or every week. So there will obviously be a ramping up and a ramping down. So that will be catered for within the actual volumes that we're looking at. And obviously at all times we'll need to comply with the conditions of the consent should council issue the consent, and also the general requirements of the management plan that's supporting the proposal. There's also conditions, or the condition in relation to the volume and reporting to council in terms of the volumes crushed. So there's, I suppose, a requirement, and there will be a need to have a mechanism in place that is satisfactory to council to monitor that volume and for that to be reported to council. So there's surety, I suppose, in terms of the overall throughput of the plant. So I suppose what we say is that there has been the work done in terms of those specialist reports. There's the work done by council officers in terms of assessing the proposal and making a recommendation of the proposal to support the issue of the development consent. And that's all based upon the requirements of the LEP and other state policies and requirements. So officers have sought to recommend approval subject to conditions, and we would commend that recommendation to councillors, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, James. Councillor McAllister.
Thanks, James. You refer to the management plan. What we have here is an environmental management plan. Is that the complete management plan, or is there more of it that we haven't got here?
No, that's essentially the sort of the management plan that was accompanying the application, and then there was a previous it was an acoustic and odour report done under the previous approval by Pitt and Sherry, an external third-party consultant. So that's sort of another part of the management of the site that's in place already. So I suppose what we've lodged here is in addition to what is already in place.
So we've already seen those documents. I don't remember seeing them.
Yeah, correct. Under the previous consideration by council, there was a traffic impact assessment and the noise and odour management plan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any others? I'll just have one, James, if I can. One of the conditions put on in terms of the occupation and the ongoing use refers to process must not exceed 30,000 tonne per annum. Your summary sheet here just says 4,200 tonne being crushed per week for 10 weeks, and it'd make 42,000. So,
yep. So that's our application details that'd be a maximum per week, and then the maximum per annum would be no more than 30,000 tonnes.
So you're saying,
So,
yeah.
as I've indicated,
Not exceeding
Yep.
30,000 tonnes.
there's the ramping up and ramping down period
Yep,
where we
okay.
wouldn't be sort of at 100% capacity. And
Thank
certainly that's another trigger as far as other approvals are required as well, so.
Councillor Crisp?
James, I'd like to talk more about the management of the mark, which has been raised. On page 146, it says that it's going to be reincorporated in the adjoining vineyards, and that's really commendable. However, as I understand, it needs to be composted for some time before that happens, and I think that's what one of the objectors was concerned about, is where that composting has been done. Because if you look at page 148, it says the mark bay, that the mark has to be moved, and it does concede there that the odour can become offensive if it's not removed. And what I do note in your report on page 150 is that the odour assessment's been based on the wind directions based on where the crushing plant is, not where the mark will be composted. And that's why I'm just concerned about where it is. If it's dispersed amongst, if it's the most convenient thing to do is compost it near where you're going to use it, but that's not always a wise thing to do because of the amenity issues. So I'd like to know a little more about the composting operation, because it's going to be significant given those number of tonnes. And perhaps something that I will add here is that recently council ended a worm operation in Curwa based on some offensive odour, and I have a farm near there, and there are several ways, but I think the offensive odour come from Great Mark. He was composting ready to add to his feed, and we had a significant had to make a significant response that the worm farmer has now just moved his operation. But I think it was not the worms causing the problem, it was the Great Mark that he was composting there, and that prompted us. So that's why I'm anxious to know as much about the mark composting to make sure that there is no opportunity or no way that it can offend anybody and come back to it. So that's, I think that's just my only bit of information. I'd like to be assured where it is, because depending where it is and you put the wind part on, you can then see where, if there is, we know there is odour, where it's going to end up, because you can't compost it without odour. I think
Sure.
We've all done it, and you can't do it. So that, if you could assist with that, that would help me.
Yeah. So, I mean, I suppose we rely upon the report in terms of the material that is there, and that there are conditions recommended to councillors in terms of general amenity type conditions that ensure that there's should odour become an issue, that council are able to sort of take action, I suppose you'd say, in relation to odours emanating from the site. What I would say, I suppose, and what has been alluded to earlier by the objector, is that there's been some learnings taking place since the initial operations begun, and that the odour has been nowhere near to the extent that was what was previously the case. And certainly, in terms of the equipment that is in place, I'm not an expert in terms of crushing wine grapes and crowding juice, but having been there on a number of occasions when it has been in operation, the mark, I suppose, is very dry, and that's because of the equipment that is in place, and I suppose that the technology that is available. It's not by any means old technology. It's certainly new technology and modern, and which means that it's sort of easier to manage afterwards. The mark is kept on site. When you say composted, we've been involved in composting operations and like commercial composting operations, and gaining approvals from different agencies. It's not sort of a composting operation, I suppose you would say. It's merely probably really drying out and managing that mark rather than adding additional items to the mark to increase its benefit. It's drying it out, managing it, making sure that it doesn't get too hot, catch on fire, those sorts of things. And then as soon as possible, it's spread to the vineyards that are in the ownership of the proponent. So, short of sort of producing a further report, I suppose that there has been learnings. The management is not as complex as a regular sort of compost operation. And I suppose I go to the previous point that I made, that we are in a rural area and there's manure, etc., getting spread to vineyards at this time of the year particularly, in preparing for the soils to be improved over time. So it's something that is not uncommon within such areas.
Yeah, very good, because if we can avoid this up front, when you get into vintage, everybody's too busy to have to solve any more problems than you have to. So if they can be avoided, that saves everybody a lot of grief.
Thank you. Councillor Hayward.
Over this, Mark, many years ago when they owned the other property up north of Wentworth, I carted fertiliser up there every day and they were doing mark up there and there was no odour. And I have heard that because of the bigger volume that they're going to produce, the mark is going out to their property out at Avoca. The big composter, I don't know if that's in concrete, but that's what I've heard is going to happen because of the bigger volume of grape mark.
Yeah, well, what our position is that it'll be spread over the land holding, I suppose, that is not just at Jindalee Road. There's other properties, so there is quite an area of land for it to be spread over, and one of those places would be along the Darling as well.
All right. Thank you. Any others?
Would it be unreasonable perhaps to ask for just some sort of confirmation of perhaps what Councillor Hayward has said and what some of this discussion, that we get a confirmation in writing to council just outlining that plan?
Yep, that's not a problem at all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any others? Councillor McAllister.
Just in relation to page 158, the introduction of your report, you talk about the difficulties in securing transport for the juice within 24 hours and therefore the need for additional storage of juice on the land. You've mentioned in your opening statement that generally, or almost always, the juice is transported within 24 hours of being crushed. Has sort of the availability of transport changed, or is therefore the need for increased storage capacity nullified, or what's the actual story with that?
I suppose the dilemma that we have is that there is the wine grapes are ready to be harvested when they're ready, and so you can't always sort of hold them back. So they need to be processed, the juice needs to be created, and not always is the transport available. And as council would have heard, of more recent times in terms of, labour force, machinery and equipment, it doesn't all sort of come together. So I suppose it's, given the increasing production, there's the need for a buffer or insurance policy in relation to that. So in order to ensure the juice at its optimum, it's best that it is removed within 24 hours of crushing or being harvested. But that, isn't always the case and not always possible, but certainly it's the proponent's intent, and it's better for them for it to go to its next destination, I suppose, to ensure its integrity.
So on that point of the integrity, should adverse things happen and transport's not available and you've got 30,000 litres at maximum stored on the facility, we all know that grape juice has a lifespan. Your environmental report doesn't refer to the need for disposal of spoiled juice. Is there any risk management around that unlikely event occurring? Because that's a considerable amount of liquid, which could also present odour issues, amongst other things.
So the 30,000 is per annum. So it's not that we've got capacity to store the full sort of year's worth of crush on site. So that's the first point I suppose I would make. If there was, I suppose, a problem arising in relation to the availability of transport, I suppose worst case scenario, well, I would imagine that you would just have to cease harvesting if there wasn't the capacity, because you can sort of forecast that in the sort of days leading up to that. So that's what I would say. And the proponent would not be able to sort of process any more grapes until there's capacity available within the storage on site. So
I can't find it, but it's probably in here. If you could direct me to what the maximum storage capacity that your proponent is expecting or hoping to have.
it's in there, but I can't recall it off the top. It's in our application, but I can't recall it off the top of my head. So
Thanks.
12 million litres.
All right, thank you. Any other, Councillor Beaumont?
Yeah, James, I'm just interested in the extraction record and how you'll be keeping records on extraction and what you'll be providing to council in terms of a report in relation to extraction figures.
Sure. So there's options available in terms of the extraction, and the condition that's recommended isn't sort of specific in terms of, it's specific in terms of that it needs to be provided each 3 months and provided to council. But in terms of the form, it's not specific. There is a weighbridge on site that's been commissioned, so there's the opportunity for that to sort of present records and documents to be produced as a result of that. There may be dockets, spreadsheet. So I suppose what our proposal would be at this stage is to make use of the weighbridge. Whether or not there's something more specific or different that council requires.
No, I would have thought the weighbridge would be the logical.
Then that would be available for us to sort of consider and provide, I suppose.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Well, thanks, James.
No worries.
Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes the public forum. Councillor Linklater, would you like to return us to the business of council?
Certainly. I've adjusted my spectacles, I can read now. I move that the public forum be now concluded and that the ordinary council meeting be resumed and that the recording of the meeting recommence.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Crisp, all in favour? Carried. Okay, so we're at item 6.1, outstanding matters from previous meetings. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Crisp and Rodder. Open for discussion. Any discussion? Councillor Beaumont? Okay. Can I answer that? It was in a briefing, I think, Councillor. Yeah.
No, that's why it went to the briefing, because Councillor Beaumont asked the question.
Okay.
That's the chronological order, wasn't it? You asked the question, then I delivered some information into the briefing. It remains outstanding in terms of our future operations of the Ruby, so happy enough to put that back on the table. Certainly hasn't dropped off the radar.
No, well, I think given the importance of the matter, it should remain on the outstanding.
Okay, good call. Councillor Hayward?
Yeah, 10.1, we're talking about those transportable buildings. I know you're looking into quotes for others, but are we going to get these ones that are not usable now for us to be put out for tender, to be sold off? They're just going to deteriorate sitting where they are.
Yeah, so it's that asset management, so we'll get the prices in, which I expect in the next couple of weeks for the comparative nature, so they'll either be, the cost analysis will say buy new, or still come back to council and say retrofit the older ones, and based on that analysis will be the determination of what happens with the old ones. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All in favour? Carried. Item 7.1 is the mayoral report. I'll move it. Second, Councillor Linklater. Any discussion? All in favour? Carried. Item 8 is reports from committees. The first one, the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee. The recommendation there, move it please. Councillor Cripps, second, Councillor Hayward. Discussion, it was the first meeting of the new Audit Committee, which Councillor Beaumont is a member of. Would you like to make any comment?
I wasn't anticipating having to make a comment, but it was very much an introductory session. Each member provided a brief resume on their background. A works schedule was addressed. Review of the OLG committee guidelines, a review of committee terms of reference, and just general housekeeping, I guess, but mostly it was an induction and overview session at this stage.
All right, thank you. Any questions out of it? All in favour? Yeah, Councillor McAllister?
Suggested amendment, actually.
Yes,
So the terms of reference,
I did notice that.
recommendation is asking us to approve these terms of reference.
Yes.
So just a couple of points that I'd just like to clarify here that I was noticing. I'm sorry if I'm boring everyone. It says on page 49, under independence, direct reporting line to and from the council's internal audit function. Who's the internal audit function?
They haven't been engaged at this stage. That's one of the next steps that the committee will be focusing on, is setting up the internal audit function and engaging an internal auditor.
Right, okay, that's why that doesn't make sense, because there's three references to it there. The members, are they New South Wales residents?
The two independent members, one of them lives in Wentworth and the other one lives in Golgol, and the current interim chairperson is a resident of Swan Hill, but is the current chairperson of the Untitled Shire Council Audit Committee.
Right. So is this then also part of the joint, joint
Organisation.
organisation, is the word? No, so this is separate.
This is separate. The JO will formulate their own committee.
Right, okay. So the chair then, I noticed that the councillor needs to be non-partisan.
Mm-hmm.
Has the chair disclosed a relationship with the leader of the Nationals in Victoria?
I don't know. I'll have to look at their disclosure return. They've all lodged disclosure returns.
So you've cited those?
I haven't read them yet, but they have been lodged in the last couple of days.
So the concern then is if that is the case, and if my information is up to date, there's an existing or pre-existing relationship with the City
take that under advisement and do such.
And in that case, I think we can't really approve the committee. We've done that due diligence. The other point, just that I wanted to make a couple of amendments to the terms of reference. Under authority, again on page 49, the use of any council resource it needs just sounds a little broad. To me, I would suggest an amendment that reads as relevant to its function, and again with the point, any matters relevant to its functions with the external auditor or external parties. There are some typos which I'm happy to provide. And on page 50, the bottom paragraph, there's a whole sentence that doesn't make any sense. The environment in which council operates and the contribution that that the committee makes to the council. That sentence doesn't say anything. The name of the eligibility criteria is probably consistent throughout the document. For example, on page 50, it's referred as guidelines for risk management and internal audit in local councils. In New South Wales, it should be for local councils. And then on page 51, it says under responsibilities of members, guidelines for risk management and internal audit for local government in New South Wales, it should say councils. Work plans, I'm just interested, how does that tie in with the strategic plan?
As far as...
The committee's work
Mhm,
plan?
yep.
Yep. Is that reflected
Well,
everything that we do?
Yeah,
needs to link
in
to that
strategic plan,
is
yep.
my understanding
Yep.
correct?
It's correct,
Yeah.
yep.
So how does this tie into that?
And the committee itself has to develop its own strategic plan as well. So, yeah, that's again another matter that they'll be working through over the next 12 months, is to put that work plan together and also work towards a strategic plan for the committee that then relates back to council's community strategic plan.
So has any consultation been done with staff or community in relation to these terms of reference? Specifically, and the reason for my question is you would think that the staff who are members of the union would want to have a union rep with them if they're called to attend a committee, as per page 54. The chair can request members and all sorts of people, including councillors, they must attend. If there's a must, I'd like to see a reference to an act that suggests that. That's just my preference. Page 55, the first tick in relation to the item that we're about to get to, the OLG Circular 2122 on page 79, the first requirement in terms of breaching the conditions of will become eligible under the New South Wales Government's Audit and Risk Committee independent chairs and members pre-qualification scheme. That's been scrapped in my understanding.
Yes.
So that would need to be removed. And last page, page 59. The first dot point under service reviews, the last word in the first sentence should probably be deliver, there's a line missing. The first tick under performance data of measurement should probably be if council, instead of. And finally, it mentions that at least once every council term, governing body must conduct an external review of the effectiveness of the committee. For that reason, my amendment to the motion would be that as well as the first point and the second point being that council approve the terms of reference of the committee with amendments described. Is if other councillors agree. to them. And the third point being that council schedules an external audit of the effectiveness of the committee to be completed by the end of August 2023.
All right, so that's an amendment. Do we have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Hayward. All right, if there's no other discussion, we'll put the amendment to a vote. All in favour?
Sorry, can we get
I'm
that?
getting there.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, thank you.
So the second point, that council approves the terms of reference for the committee with amendments as described. And third point being that council schedules an external audit, external review of the effectiveness of the committee to be completed by the Just take an S off councils. Actually, don't need that verbal. Thank you.
Happy?
Question? So, part B, amendments as described.
Yep.
What does that mean, sorry? Everything that you said?
That means those that I've just mentioned, add some if you'd like, because then they'll be described as well.
Oh. Yes, no, nothing additional, but I must admit I haven't committed to memory everything that was said.
It's on the record.
Is that your question?
Oh, well, being asked to support an amendment that I can't remember every point that was made, and there seemed to be some issues with the independence of one member of the committee, but in the absence of any additional information, should that apply to none of the committee or all of the committee? That's just a bit troubled by that part.
Okay, well, Councillor McAllister, would you like to perhaps just run through those again, if you could?
And I'll just make the point, I've mentioned anything about the committee themselves, apart from seeking due diligence.
Might just,
Nothing in the motion about that.
just ask you to turn your microphone on, Councillor.
Thank you. All right, so. Page 49, under authority, the second dot point, use any council resource it needs as relevant to its function. 2, 3, 4. Fifth dot point, discuss any matters relevant to its function with the external auditor or other external parties. Page 50, right in the middle. All committee members are to meet the independence and eligibility criteria prescribed in the guidelines for risk management and internal audit for local councils in New South Wales. That should read. Final paragraph, second sentence, makes no sense, should be deleted. Page 51, reference to the guidelines again should read Guidelines for Risk Management and Internal Audit for Local Councils in New South Wales. And if you want to check that, it's in page 79 on the OLG circular. Did request a reference to an act that can or cannot be included. Page 55, the first tick under resignation and dismissal of members. The entire tick breached the conditions of or become ineligible under the New South Wales Government Audit and Risk Committee independent chairs and members pre-qualification scheme. Again, as per circular on page 79, that pre-qualification scheme has been scrapped. The final page 59, the first dot point under service reviews and business improvement. The first line, the last word should probably be deliver instead of delver. I'm just guessing, but that would make sense. Under performance data and measurement, the first tick should probably be if council has a robust system. And again, I'm just guessing. But that would make those two sentences make sense in my mind. The grammar note.
Thank you, councillor, and thank you for your indulgence, Mr Mayor.
Not a worry. Okay, any further discussion on it? We're voting on the amendment as put up. All those in favour? Carried. Okay, 8.2 is a Wentworth Showgrounds User Group meeting. Recommendation there to receive and note the report. A mover, please. Councillor Rodder, seconder Councillor Cooper. Discussion. Any discussion? All in favour? Carried. 8.3, the George Gordon Oval User Group meeting. Recommendation again, receive and note the report. Councillor Chris, the mover. Councillor Cooper, the seconder. Any discussion? Carried. 8.4, the Carramar Drive User Group meeting. Same recommendation, receive and note the report. Mover Councillor Rodder, seconded Councillor Cooper. Any discussion? Councillor McAllister.
Could I please be included back on this? There's a little bit of history there that would probably be helpful for consideration.
Any discussion or comment around that? Councillor Rodder?
Councillor McAllister has earlier requested a list of external committees and the representatives on those. Perhaps that's a discussion to be held once that information is available to Councillor McAllister.
Okay, you okay with that?
Yeah, just putting my request on the
Okay, thank you.
I think if I may, Mr Mayor, all committees, although we're only 8 months into the tenure of the committees, I think we'll probably go back into the normal rotation of September
They'll be again.
being the allocation of committees membership.
Alrighty. Okay, we're all in favour? Carried. Okay, 9.1 is the General Manager's Report. Again, a recommendation, receive and note the information. Mover, please. Councillor Rodder, seconder Councillor Beaumont. Any discussion out of that report and the circulars? All in favour? Carried. No, we'll let you have a question.
Question relates to the first circular, dated the 13th of July. There's a consultation period of 21 days. It may have happened and I might have missed it, but is it possible when there's a time impetus on these circulars that they're provided so that there can be some discussion before the date closes?
Yes, certainly. Yep.
Thank you.
I think Excuse me, Matthew, were you and Michelle doing something in relation to that? Open space, public spaces? Get back to you, Councillor McAllister, but I think the planning team have had some involvement with that.
Okay, any other questions? All in favour? Carried. 9.2 is a change of our next month's meeting, and the recommendation is the ordinary council meeting scheduled for 21st of September be rescheduled to be held at the Wentworth Shire Chambers on the 28th. Move Councillor Rodder, seconded Councillor Hayward. The reason quite obvious, there'll be three of us away. Oh, sorry, I looked up after I read it. So you'd like to say you've moved it, and Councillor Rodder happy to second it. Okay, reasons obvious, all in favour?
Also, there's a part B there, Mr.
Okay, so as well as that, part B is due to the timeframes for the, I can't see now, Gail. Due to the timeframes for the applications for the Stronger Country Communities funding, the resources for region funding and the local roads and community infrastructure funding, a special meeting be called for the 12th of September 2022. Extraordinary meeting, quite correct. Right, you're both happy to have part B added to that? Move Councillor Hayward, second Councillor Rodder. All in favour? Carried. Item 9.3 is local government Willandra Lakes World Heritage Committee. Councillor McAllister expressed a wish to put a hand for that, as she was council's prior rep on it. You'd like to move that. Seconded Councillor Hayward. Any discussion? Councillor Beaumont, you were one of two nominated early in the piece.
I was one of two nominated earlier. Look, I'm happy to withdraw my expression of interest if that makes the process easier for Councillor McAllister to step into that role. I don't think there hasn't been any formal announcement yet as to who's been accepted.
No, it's a ministerial appointment under further assessment, so you have the right to action as you've nominated, or you can remain in place for further consideration of the ministers' panel. So it's entirely up to you.
Look, I'm happy to withdraw my expression of interest if it makes that easier for Councillor McAllister to move into that role.
Once again, it's an assessment, but basically it's... Yeah.
Or we can let it run its course.
No, you've nominated to withdraw. That's we'll just communicate that through the relevant agencies, whichever you prefer.
I feel like I should probably mention, Mr Mayor, if I may, just the quantum of work that was undertaken by the previous committee, including creating the committee manual or handbook, I think it's called, and significant amount of liaising between the governments, the local governments of both Balranald and Wentworth Shire. That's all.
Councillor Rodder.
Is there a maximum number of nominations for that committee, Mr Mayor?
Well, I think we were asked to provide two. Is that
We were.
correct?
But from since receiving the expression of interest from Councillor McAllister, I've sought from Department of National Parks and the Office of Local Government New South Wales, and they're willing to accept an additional application.
Okay.
I would just add that Councillor McAllister has the 3 or 4 years of prior experience and knowledge in relation to that committee. So, and I think that would be valuable.
Okay. Any other comments? Councillor Rodder?
I think since Councillor Nichols is not here, that she may wish to withdraw her question of interest also.
With respect, I sought clarification via the phone call 15 minutes before the 5 o'clock meeting for where she seen fit to leave her nomination stand.
Let's go with 3.
Okay. All right, the recommendation's there. We'll move in a second. All in favour? Carried. 9.4, council branding. Council endorse, the recommendation is council endorse the Saunders design branding proposal and progress the development of the custom style guideline previously presented to council. Councillor Rodder moves, seconder. Councillor Linklater, any discussion? Okay, all in favour? Councillor McAllister.
I'm a little bit rusty. I'm just interested because we did the Wentworth the Drive rebranding, and I'm looking at the financial implications of this rebranding. Does that include previous rebranding? Because, like, my concern, I guess, is that each time we have a new mayor, we go through this rebranding thing, and it seems to be one of those superfluous costs that doesn't really achieve too much.
Did you say a new mayor?
I'd just suggest that the Worth the Drive was an interim thing, and we're looking at corporate branding right across the activities and branches of our business. So this is to be our future corporate branding. The costs associated with Worth the Drive were absorbed within promotion material. Basically, we had a marquee, we had some memorabilia stuff and presenting at the 2019 show, I think it was.
There are town signs as well.
Yeah, there has been too. Yep.
That was part of it too.
Yeah, it was too, yep.
I'm sorry, I might have missed something, but I just
No, you haven't.
didn't
No,
remember it being presented as an interim branding. That's
yeah, okay.
just my concern.
Councillor Beaumont?
My understanding was that the rebranding, the Worth the Drive was pretty much a tourism-initiated promotion, whereas this resolution, as it stands, is about rebranding of the not just tourism but the whole of the Shire council. So it's a much bigger change than just the tourism aspect of Worth the Drive.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a mover and a second. You got a question?
My question is in regards to Councillor McAllister. Obviously, there's been 8 months' worth of work done prior to her rejoining the chamber. Has she been adequately briefed on the work that's been done so far by the council?
Adequately, I'm not too sure. Councillor McAllister was provided with the small booklet that Saunders gave us and the report table before you, so a level of detail.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favour? Carried. 9.5, the monthly finance report. Council receives a notes report. Councillor Linklater moved, seconded Councillor Beaumont. Any discussion? Councillor Hayward?
Yeah, with the council roads, we still seem to be getting 221 hours of work there, overtime.
Those figures there primarily relate to the works being undertaken on the Poonkerry-Menindee Road project, where there is a 10 days on a 4 days off arrangement
Right.
with the locality. So with the large construction crew that's up there at the moment, is primarily associated all with that overtime component on that project.
And would be part of the funding
Correct, yeah, part of the
cost,
Part of the
costed by
funding
the
is
funding
already
we
there.
receive.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's okay.
All in favour? Carried. 9.6, the monthly investment report. Again, we receive and note the monthly invest report. A mover, Councillor Crisp, secondly Councillor Rodder. Discussion? Carried. 9.7 is the June budget review. Recommendation is that council approve the variations to the operational plan. The variations there are favourable. Have a mover, please. Councillor Chris, Councillor Hayward, seconder. Any discussion? All in favour? Carried. Point 8 is the delivery program progress update. The recommendation again is that we receive and note the quarterly report. A mover, thank you. Councillor Linklater, second to Councillor Cooper. Any discussion? Carried. 9.9 is request for financial assistance. And there is,
I move that we consider the items that don't preclude councillors first.
certainly, you just beat me to it. That was my next sentence. So, Councillor Beaumont has declared an interest in the racing club and the two coincides the last three. Anybody else have one in that?
He was the only one.
Hey?
He was the only one.
Yep. All right, so we'll discuss the first four. Open for comment. Page 128 we're looking at.
To move that we accept them all in grant, all of those 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3. 4. Over, do we have a second to that? Councillor Cooper. Discussion. Councillor Rodder, you're shaking your head?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So just in regards to the financial position of the Wentworth Show Society and their application for $5,000 for the hosting of the 2022 Wentworth Show, there doesn't seem to be justification for that amount.
Okay, any comments?
I'll just take up the contrary position and say that it brings in a lot of tourism from right across the region, and I think council can certainly support it, as we do. We do a lot of in-kind support, but I don't think that they should be, penalised for being fiscally prudent.
Okay. Does cost a few bob to run the show, so it's going to last the next 12 months as well.
And just one other point, if I may.
Can you turn your microphone on, please?
The Derton Kennel Club, I just wonder if, I think there was a note about them being hacked, their bank being hacked. Have council been able to assist them or make some sort of assurance that if we give them money, they're not going to get hacked again? Is that possible?
Yeah, it was in the letter to their application. It mentioned that in October last year they had been hacked and lost substantial funds. So we can do that as part of when we hand the money over to them, we can seek assurances that those issues have been rectified.
Okay, we have a mover and a seconder on the first four. Any other discussion? Those in favour? Carried. All right, we'll now address the next three while Councillor Beaumont leaves the room. Okay, the remaining three open for discussion.
I move that we accept all of them, noting that the District Racing Club seems to have found the most expensive dishwasher on the face of the planet. I'm sure that they'll put it to good use.
I'll second it.
Moved Councillor McAllister, seconded Councillor Hayward. Okay, any further discussion? How many dishes can you put in it?
I think you'll find nowadays with dishwashers in a commercial area like that have to come under a lot of considerations. They're not just our household dishwashers.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
You know, they mostly sterilise everything at the same time, so.
All right, so we have a mover and a seconder. Those in favour? Carried. Okay, item 9.10. Councillors Rodder and Hayward are both departing. Yeah. You gotta come back, honey. Oh, okay.
I'll just use this brief pause to say how fabulous it is to see the Wentworth show is back this year. Lots of excitement in the community.
Councillor, it's had a couple of years like everything in the down and out department, so it'll be fantastic for the community.
And I'd hope that,
Town, the whole region, in fact, it will be a great thing.
I hope that council's promoting it far and wide.
Well, I'm sure we are. I know the Show Society is. I think I'm lined up for a few radio interviews starting tomorrow, so be good.
Radio, TV, Facebook.
Mm. Okay, so councillors Rodder and Hayward declared a interest. So we have a recommendation there that the matter is approved. That we approve the increasing the weekly production from 700 tonne to 4,200 tonne at 28 Jindalee Road and 623 River Road, Kumi-Alla. Can we have a move and a second to open discussion? Councillor Linklater, seconded Councillor Cooper. Open for discussion. We've heard from Doug Owley against, and we've heard from James Goldsworthy on the four sides. Discussion, Councillor Crisp.
I'd like to thank both the presenters tonight. I think they have been very comprehensive and have assisted us, I think, in identifying the issues and the solutions. We just need to consider whether we need to vary any of the conditions at this point to achieve the outcomes that were discussed earlier. And also like to add on that I'm well aware of how important this is to a number of growers other than the proponents in Derton who are supplying this. So I note that from Mr Alvey didn't say that he didn't wish to go ahead, he just wished there to be attention to conditions. So I think we're in a good position, providing we can seek now amongst councillors whether we are comfortable with the conditions that are there. And as I look at them, I'm seeking guidance from other councillors whether an amendment would be the best way forward to secure that mark management letter that was offered by the proponent, and whether that's sufficient or whether we wish to put that into the conditions, and if so, how difficult would that be, Director Caitlin, to incorporate that letter into conditions?
Thank you, Councillor Crisp. At this point in time, these are only draft conditions, so if Council are of the point of view that an additional condition or an amended condition is going to be more beneficial to both the operation and to the community, then that's something we can do prior to the issue of an operational consent. That's not a problem at all.
In that case, I will move an amendment that a condition that condition be added, and that is that the proponent supply a mark management plan. Now, I've moved it. Now we need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second of... All right, any other discussion? Councillor Beaumont.
Yes, I'm just wondering whether we need to add to paragraph 6 on page 248, the condition in relation to extraction, and the beneficiary of this consent shall keep records on the number of grapes processed on site and provide council with these records every 3 months. I wonder whether there should be some terminology in there just relating to weighbridge records.
The weighbridge, yeah. Condition 6. So Councillor Beaumont added on the end of it, including weighbridge receipt. Ticket receipt or? Okay. That's normally my answer.
Dockets, tickets, whatever, receipts.
Okay, any other discussion? Councillor McAllister.
My concern is that all of the objections and even previous objections, I think, were around traffic management, and that road is, as it says, rated for large trucks to travel on, yet it's also been cut up pretty badly, particularly the shoulders of that road in towards Boronga. I nearly fell into one of them yesterday. I would really hope that council can consider an alternative route, preferably to the highway, at some point, because I doubt very much whether this will be the last development application that council sees, and those traffic concerns are only going to increase. I also consider that the Tonkin report that states that council's counter and in data only goes up to 2003 to be a terrible indictment on council care of roads. If it's true, if it's not true, and I hope it's not, we would be able to provide more relevant, up-to-date data about the traffic impacts on that road, which I do remember asking for previously. So I really think if we don't look at the traffic issue now, it's something that we certainly do need to factor into the future, in my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, it's a very good point indeed. Do you want comment in the amendment, or you just...
I won't bother, because my amendment would be that this is not approved unless and until an alternate traffic route is found. Because, as you would know, Mayor Elstone, I put safety above everything else.
Yes, understand that. Okay, any other discussion? All right, so who moved the amendment in the end? Councillor Crisp, seconded, and it was seconded by Councillor Cooper. Right, those in favour? Against? It's carried. Division? Yeah, no, you're out. Okay. He took 9.11. All right, we'll have the other two councillors return. All right, 9.11 is the LEP plan, the Goa Lagoon rezoning planning proposal. There's a recommendation there. Moved Councillor McAllister, seconded Councillor Crisp. Any discussion? All in favour? Carried. Division? Everyone? Okay, 9.12 is health and planning request for policy adoption, a recommendation there. Councillor Rodder moved, seconded Councillor Cooper. Any discussion? Carried. In 9.13 is the stormwater infrastructure on 191 Pittman Avenue, Baronga. The recommendation is to determine if we will take ownership or not on a portion of the land containing the existing stormwater infrastructure at 191 Pittman Avenue. And the second part is to accordingly advise the cost of planning and development in writing of its decision. Have a mover, please. Move to open discussion. Councillor McAllister, second Councillor Cooper. Open for discussion. Any discussion?
And it seems like it's sort
comments? Just put your microphone on, thanks, councillor.
Presume that the motion is that we take ownership.
Yes, the actual recommendation is that we determine, say, councillor McAllister is determining that we do take ownership. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favour? Carried. I think we're doing, that's a council one, isn't it? All right, 9.14 is the delegated authority approvals. As at the end of July, moved councillor Rodder, seconded councillor Crisp. Were you leaving the room, Deputy Mayor, or were you just making a... It's insignificant.
Non-pecuniary, trivial.
Okay, there we are. Have the recommendation there. All in favour? Carried. Division. Everyone, thank you. 9.15 is the project and works update. Recommendation there is to receive and note the major works update undertaken in July. Scheduled works for the following months. Councillor Rodder, second to Councillor Crisp. Open for discussion.
Sorry, Councillor Hayward. I have a question in relation to Wentworth EDS, page 314. I'm a bit intrigued as to the comment, feedback from council's wastewater staff suggests that the Willow Bend site not be used in the case of river vessels accidentally pumping fuel into the sewage system. I'm quite sure how that can occur, if someone can explain.
I think in response to that comment that we have had that occurrence a couple of times at the Baronga facility where for whatever reason people who have hired boats or have been on boats have either mistakenly or deliberately disposed of fuel in some form or another, and that fuel has gone through to the rising main and the pump station. At that particular point in time, it was in that and the caravan park. So that has happened on 2 previous occasions, which has involved some substantial rework and evacuation of a certain part of the caravan park on that particular occasion. It was a comment, as I understand, as part of the assessment process from the staff at that point in time.
Okay, I find that intriguing that someone could pump fuel into a sewage system. The pump out facilities, I understand, are a universal fit on boats, and I don't see how the pump intake would fit a fuel.
There is an option to within the facility to direct dispose of as well. So I'm not quite sure how they did it or what the circumstances were surrounding the previous occasions, but I am certainly aware that it did happen on 2 previous occasions.
Is it like that? That sounds like sort of environmental vandalism, really.
Well, there was no way for us at that time to determine who it was. Yes.
Yeah, I just think we have an opportunity at the moment to consider an alternative site for the effluent disposal facility, and the caravan park, the bottom end of the caravan park would seem logical for a whole host of reasons, because it's downstream of the bridge over the Darling, which alleviates the need to lift the bridge for larger vessels. It's more readily accessible. It would fit, I think, neatly into that bottom end of the caravan park. And it would also be consistent with other facilities particularly in South Australia, where they put the pump-out facilities in caravan parks. Anyway, that's my comment. It's for the experts to make a decision on, but as I say, it's an opportunity at the moment to consider that and work out the best way forward.
I don't know if because of previous conflict of interest with regards to the caravan park development, I've, to this point in time, had limited input with regards to the development site. I'm not sure if Ken might be able to comment further with regards to this matter.
By no way, shape or means was this meant to preclude what the user group or the reference group in terms of the pump out facility. It's just to let you know that there's issues around what may have thought to be the train of thought around the location into the caravan park, and there's further work and investigation got to happen in relation to it.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, well, I'd like to concur with Councillor Beaumont that it would be a preferred site down there. People travelling with houseboats up the river like that, they do, I'd say, at times pump some out somewhere else rather than... So you're trying to make it convenient so that no environmental issues are along the river. It makes it easier, no bridge going up, and easy access. Because most of the boats are going along the Murray. To come into there is fairly easy, but to get the bridge up and then go up and then come back and get it up again causes a lot of problems.
Okay, I do notice with that, Jeff, that on page 317 there, we're saying detailed design works to progress based on the original location of the EDS.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, you don't really know.
Time, but I haven't had any involvement with regards to
Yeah, okay, well, perhaps some clarity around that before any decisions made, if we could.
Yeah, I think that's the appropriate course of action, Mr Mayor. While the council up until reasonably recent times we've acquired land and facilitated where we thought was going to be upgrading on the upstream of the bridge location. This gives us opportunity now to do a SWOT analysis or the benefits and risks associated with both two locations. So we'll do that and come back to you.
Thank you. Any other, Councillor Rudder?
The existing site where it is currently, we've acquired land to upgrade and put it up there, or the Willow Bend Caravan Park site.
Councillor Rudder.
Just in regards to the photograph on page 331 of the Wentworth wastewater treatment plant demolition, is that the concrete and waste material that's been disposed of between Curra and Wentworth on the right-hand side of the road?
No, it isn't. The waste material from this particular site has been handled by the contractor and subcontractor. The material that's on site between here and Curra relates to a completely different contractor, and they're currently, as I understand,
this week to crush it.
Yeah, crushing and making the recycled material to repurpose away from that site. So it's a temporary storage site on their property to do that. So, but that was from a previous civil construction site. But the material from our site, all the asbestos material has been professionally removed with the appropriate contractors. And the existing concrete is to be disposed of via the appropriate means under the contract with the principal contractor.
Thank you. It is a bit of an eyesore, I have to say.
Okay, Councillor Linklater.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just wanted to thank Director Gunn for providing the additional information on the James King Park retaining wall. And just to make a comment with regard to the Golgol East raw water system, looking forward to seeing that project commence. And in the absence of Councillor Nichols, just to highlight that the Golgol Cemetery shed will commence construction. The councillor has raised that many times, so thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure Councillor Nichols will appreciate that. Councillor Beaumont.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to suggest that probably two of the most important projects we have in process at the moment are the Willow Bend Caravan Park and the Shire Civic Centre reconstruction. Neither of these are included in the project and works update. Can councillors have an update, and can these projects be included in future monthly reports, please?
Yeah, certainly, and I think Willow Bend will get underway on 6th of September, and tenders for the Civic Centre due on the 7th of September. So I think from then on there'll be regular updates on both those major projects as we work through them.
Nothing further to add, Mr Mayor.
Oh, thank you. Councillor McAllister.
Can I just say that can we have those added to the future reports though, please?
Yes, that's what I would be suggesting. Councillor McAllister.
Just on the James King Park riverfront retaining wall, part of the original design was in line with, and I think council was addressing it at the same time, the Disability Action Inclusion Plan. The addition of stairs concerns me because part of the original design was that the path itself would have a little sort of gully, if you like, so that for ease of getting people, if they're in wheelchairs or if they've got prams or whatever, into boats. So the addition of stairs concerns me just in relation to the Disability Action Inclusion Plan.
Yes, take your point there. I will take that up with the designers and see if we can facilitate that as an inclusion, because certainly as its current situation that can't be facilitated, but I'm sure that can be incorporated into the design.
Okay, any others? Councillor Hayward?
Yeah, page 315 to Jeff Gunn. This construction work on the old Wentworth Road, the middle section, what's that entail? I drove along there, it looks fairly greasy. Is there got to be upgrade of gravel on that middle section or something, is it?
We were waiting for the completion of the assessment associated with the, I think the AHIP and the cultural heritage requirements associated with that specific area of site. So that was that had been delayed through its approval process, but as I understand, it's nearing completion. So
I just wondered why that middle section wasn't sort of done. I thought,
no,
hasn't been done.
Yeah, it will be done.
Okay, any other questions? All in favour? Carried. Item 10 is notices of motions and questions without notice. There's a motion there from Councillor Rodder that we increase Inland Botanic Gardens funding by 5% a year for the current financial year. So that's moved by Councillor Rodder, obviously, seconded by everyone by the look of it. Councillor McAllister. Any discussion? It was discussed in the briefing. Any discussion? All in favour? Carried. All right, anything other in terms of questions with notice? Anyone? Councillor Linklater.
Thank you. Not so much a question, but the only spot I could fit this in. I'd just like to congratulate and acknowledge Brendan Cullen, who you may recall conquered the English Channel at the start of the month in a fantastic time of 17 hours. On Saturday, the 12th of March this year, Brendan attended a Wentworth Shire Council event, Mental Health Awareness, in Pooncarie, and he was a guest speaker and is a Lifeline ambassador. I'd like to thank Brendan for his passion and commitment and commend the ongoing work of Lifeline. What a fantastic effort.
I think we can only all join in that and fully support you, Councillor. Great suggestion. Councillor Rodder.
I just have a question in regards to the newly formed Pooncarie user group. Has there been a meeting schedule arranged for that yet?
Not at this stage.
Can we put that on the priority list, please?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you.
Okay, any others? Councillor Hayward.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I've had a few people talk to me about the crossing at the bank in Wentworth, going from one across the street. Should there be a real proper pedestrian crossing there? People are waiting and go to walk out and there's cars that just come roaring through. It's there, it's the works come into the edge of the road to sort of slow the traffic down, but if you're an older person trying to get across there.
Yeah, no, very good point.
I might be able to, that the current high pedestrian activity area, which is being considered with the Transport for New South Wales and their funding for that reduced 40 kilometre an hour zone and associated works with that. I'm sure, and with those works are incorporated associated traffic calming devices as well as line marking and signage. So I would imagine with the design that will come back could be incorporated, and we could also make that recommendation and suggestion to them as part of those works.
That'd be good, I think. Second one is with our tender panel, we've got an age limit of 19 years on trucks. I find that a bit not really in line with New South Wales trucks. They go roadworthy every year. I had a truck registered in Victoria and it was registered for, under a company for about 15 years and didn't have to go anywhere to be checked unless I got pulled up beside the road. I think we need to go back to whether these are being maintained well, machinery too. You can have we'll say our dozer on the Shire, might be 30 years old. It's maintained well, you know, it shouldn't be discarded because of age. I think we need to come back to where we're looking at the condition of these vehicles. That somebody goes and, you know, with New South Wales Rego, you're guaranteed that you've been over a shaker, your suspension, everything's right, every year. And then you're knocked back because your truck's too old. But in Victoria, I can buy a truck and in two years I can clock up 2 million kilometres and not go anywhere and have it looked at. So, you know, this gets down to somewhere where there's a grey line there.
It's a good point and something that we have discussed in relation to the tenders over the Pooncarie and Menindee roads. But I'll hand that over to
the age limit of the truck, you're not precluded. It's just one of the considerations with regards to looking at the total score for a vehicle, which will include capacity of the truck, the various experience, all manner of things. So the age of the vehicle, although it's listed there, it's only one of a number of factors considered when engaging contractors with regards to whether it's on the panel contract or whether it's with a specific tender. So they're definitely not precluded. And for the most part, it comes down to a cost per tonne per road delivered.
But when I've
with
seen
regards-
on some of the things that they're being precluded just on that 19 years.
No, no one will be precluded on that. It will all be assessed over a number of factors, like we do for all tenders and all quotations are put out from council. There's an assessment criteria, of which that is one component to be considered and is always followed up with regards to with the tenderer and the assessment team. But essentially, it will come down to a total value for money decision based on a capacity and rate to deliver.
Councillor Crisp.
I've still got one more.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
This relates back to the caravan park. We've got our dirt up to the level. Our camp kitchen's already 300 too low. Where's the capacity to put the loam on top of this to grow the lawn and everything? You can't just put a little layer over the top of that
The
soil to grow.
concrete pads will be set on top of that's there now.
Yep.
So, and then landscaping and loam will form that 150 mil for that. So
all over will be 150 mils of loam going over.
yeah, actually, I think to get some fill material to go from the existing surface across to the levee bank where the fence is being removed.
Yep.
We're actually, when we cut the roads in and cut some of the fill out for, I think they said they were going to cut 50 mil out and have the concrete pads for the RVs sitting 100 mil above. So there'll be about 100 or 125 mil of loam going in over the top of it.
Yeah, well, like this fence being removed, I brought it up back when that fence was going in that it needed to be brought up to where the caravan park was going to be, and it said no, it was the drainage, but we found out it is what I said. It's a place that's very untidy and it's going to be fixed now, but it should have been fixed back then. I know that it's hindsight, but when we were putting that fill up to there, that fence could have been put on that RL level at the time, but
Not gonna refute anything you said, Councillor Hayward.
Okay. Done? Councillor Crisp.
Perhaps to follow on from Councillor Hayward's comments about tendering, is it proper for us to be provided with the tender assessment tool guidelines to see what the weightings are for a tender?
Certainly.
Yeah, and that way we can see and then we can consider whether we may wish to vary that.
Certainly.
Okay. Thank you. Any others? Right. Councillor Cooper.
Sorry, not sure if it's the right time, but as far as the LOCKS 8 and 9 stakeholder advisory group meeting next Wednesday,
Yes.
unfortunately, I won't be able to attend that. I was stepping in for Greg, but Greg's no longer here. Unfortunately, I've a death in the family and I'll have to travel away, so if somebody could step up for that, that would be
Yes.
awesome.
Okay. We shall arrange that.
24th, and it's in the morning from 9 till, Gail, let me up. 10 till 12, is it, or 9 till 11? Wednesday. Meeting that night too, I think.
That'll be the advisory committee day, yes.
Sorry, Councillor Cooper, is that face-to-face? You were virtual? Teams meeting, yep.
Well, we'll certainly get someone to sit in. if we can. Sit in on it. Okay, thank you. All right, Councillor Linklater, would you like to take us into closed, please?
Thank you. I move that the council adjourn into closed session, the recording of the meeting be suspended and members of the press and public be excluded from the closed session, and that access to the correspondence and reports relating to the items considered during the course of the closed session be withheld unless declassified by separate resolution.
Okay, thank you. A seconder, Councillor Rotto, all in favour? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, people. Cooper, All in favour? Carried. Yes, then the general manager will. We will now ask the general manager. Hello. I'll ask the general manager to report on the business from closed council.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I would like to report that in the closed council business, item 12.1 was the deliberation over a variation for the supply and delivery of road-based material, where the council resolved to approve a variation of $52,299.90, excluding GST, for the supply and delivery of road-based material for Old Wentworth Road construction relative to procurement tender 2122/13. And that variation is in line for that provided by Mallee Quarries Proprietary Limited.
Thank you, Mr Ross. Thank you, councillors. That concludes the meeting, councillors and staff. And we'll bring the meeting to a close and look forward to next meeting on the 28th of September. Sorry, extraordinary meeting on the 12th of September first. Next, an advisory meeting next